Hey jerks. So today I'm feeling a little down, and the reason why I'm feeling a little down is because of that. Everything was going super great. Things were running, it was boosting, the car was driving really good. And I had Angel and Jesus over, and I was like, Jesus, you gotta drive this, cause you know, he's also got the 1.6 and he's considering turbo. They drove away, and in like 3-4 minutes I get a call and they're like, dude, your car's broken, something like that. Something about the injectors, they thought it was spraying fuel, because that's something you can see. Anyway, it turned out it was the fuel pressure regulator had become dislodged, or the bolts, either I forgot to put them in, which I don't think that's what it was. I probably forgot to tighten them down super hard. I definitely didn't use any Loctite or anything like that. And anyway, the bolts had fallen out, and the fuel pressure regulator popped off. We were able to field fix it, and then we got the car home. Here's the fuel pressure regulator right here. I was able to get some new bolts in there, and everything is back to normal. Well, sort of. It's not really back to normal, because now the car won't idle properly. Everything I've been able to try, everything I've been able to adjust, I can't get the idle to go under 1500 or so, 1300 sometimes, and I don't like it. It doesn't sound right when it's idling. It also sounds like there might be a vacuum leak somewhere. It just kind of bums me out, because I really love driving that Cumstain lately, because it just feels so good when you're in it. But the other thing I did was I rerouted the oil line. I had a little bit of leaking, or what looked like leaking, coming out of the oil inlet to the turbo, and I definitely had some leaking coming out of the four-square was. So I was able to remove that, and did some retightening, and I changed it from coming out of the front of the motor to over there, and I put it through the back. It's just a little bit cleaner. I think it looks better. I think I may have found a problem, part of the problem, whatever. So I'm hearing some kind of vacuum leak back here. It's very faint. It would be enough to screw with the idle. So when I spray some brake cleaner back here, spray that, you can hear that the idle changes, and that could only mean that some combustible is getting into the intake manifold, and then the car is compensating for it. You see that? So it's only back in this corner back in here, so that's what I'm assuming is maybe the intake manifold gasket is not doing so hot, because if I spray it around the throttle body, that's good. So that seems fine. It just seems to be in this back corner. Yeah, so that could be part of my problem. What I'm gonna try doing is getting an intake manifold gasket and replacing that, and seeing if that doesn't somehow fix all of my problems. All right, so here's what needs to happen. I need to take this off. I'm going to take the throttle body off. I'm going to remove all these vacuum hoses. Then I have to take off this cold air thing. I have to take the throttle cable off. Then I'll be removing the fuel rail again, and the fuel pressure regulator. And then eventually that will expose all the bolts. Oh, and that bracket right there. This one has to come off. And then I believe there's a ground line back there somewhere that I'll find eventually. And then I'll be able to remove the intake manifold. I ended up just removing my entire downpipe because reasons. And I'm going to remove the line going to the blow-off valve, just to make things easy. Okay. If you don't have a turbo system and you need to remove your intake manifold, you just have to remove all that snorkeling that goes into your air box. That would be over here. Let's move on. I'm going to go ahead and remove the throttle cable and the
yeah, I'll remove the throttle cable. There is a fancy way to do this. You just sort of, you have to use your finger to do this. You have to wrap this around like this, and then this is supposed to slide right out. Come on, man. There, just like that. So this little peg goes into that little hole right there, and that's how it's gonna be. So just like that. I'm gonna remove these 2 bolts just to get this whole thing off of the manifold. All right, these were just 10s. They were really easy to get off. And they're probably even easier to drop into your engine bay. All right, well, this is the fun part of every job where you have to now take time out of your situation to go find bolts that you lose. My plan is to remove this thing without removing these lines, because these are these airlines? Those are airlines, but I guess the idea is to not have to take the water lines off of the throttle body, because that's an extra pain in the ass. Removing air lines, vacuum lines, whatever. Come on, man. There we go. And then taking this off. I would like to remove or replace that, because I don't like this hose. I'm gonna remove this right here and this right here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, since this is white and this is a clear splitter, I'll write clear here, or C, and this will be white down here. So that'll at least tell me which of the splitters go where. All right, let's get this throttle body off. So it's just 2 bolts up here. Those are 10s. Excuse me, they're 12s. Here's the 3rd bolt and 4th bolt. When this comes off, it's just going to lay here, because I'm not going to remove the water lines going into it. Correct, that's what I said. The bottom 2 are these long bolts, and the top ones are these short nuts. So just be aware that they're different. And I've already dropped one of these nuts into the fan housing, which sucked. There we go. And then this should sort of wiggle. There you go. So I broke loose there. And then this should kind of just come forward. Like that. And boy, oh boy, was this gasket bad. So another one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to clean out both the throttle body and the intake manifold. No, I have to remove this thing first. Whoops, my bad. So those are 8s, and these 3 you can get with a socket. This one you have to use a fancy, I think you have to use a fancy wrench, because there's not enough room there. It's nice to have this little ratchet wrench, because that's how you get this last bottom one out of there. Otherwise, it's really frustrating, very, very difficult to get to this bottom 4th bolt back here. You can't even take it all the way out because of the valve cover gasket. Sorry, the valve cover, that the little nub is in the way. So you can take out these 3, and then you have to take out the, whatever this thing is, cold air, blah, 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 something or other. So this comes out. There is a gasket on it. Mine came out and got stuck on the intake manifold, and that's where that is. Because as soon as we get the fuel rail off, ow, shit. As soon as we get the fuel rail off, we can get to all of those bolts that are in there, because you can't take that off without the fuel rail being off. Anyway, so we're gonna do all this nonsense again. So if you're gonna be doing a intake manifold, what you wanna do is remove this relay right here, start the car, or at least try to start it. I wonder if I can do that. Making YouTube videos with no help. It's a good time. Turn over the motor to try and get rid of all the fuel pressure. And what that'll do is that'll just keep it from squirting. That's what she said. All right, that's all you gotta do.
All right, something I forgot to do, something I forgot to mention, and this is somewhat important. I guess it's good that I didn't do it before, but you really, really should take off the battery terminal. I'm bad at this. I'm bad at always, you know, taking that thing off.
Did I make this too tight? Yep, I sure did. Good. Fuck it.
All right, so that's just a little safety precaution, because if you remember, when I was working on the fuel rail before, I think there was a spark, and that's because I'm an idiot. So don't be an idiot like me, and make sure you remove the negative terminal of your battery before you start working on crap on your car.
Okay, so I removed this this hose right there. I put it right there, and then I need to remove these 10mm bolts. You know what? It's lefty loosey. God damn it! What's my problem? Probably because I'm hungry. Got a little bit of a headache. Things are really working out for me. So when I take this off, there should be a little bit of fuel that comes out of there, but it shouldn't be too bad. And then when I pull this out of here, there should be a little bit of fuel. Yeah, see? A little bit. Not too bad. So I'm just gonna take this off right here and remove. There we go. There, that came off. And there we go. Lots of fuel popping out of there. Excellent day. All right, now that the fuel pressure regulator is out, these are just two 12mm bolts right here and here. And then I'm going to remove the 4 injector plugs, not the injectors themselves, just the electrical for them, and then loosen those two 12mm, and then the fuel rail can come out after I remove the other fuel line. So I'm going to do that real quickly. You've seen it before. I've done it before. It's boring, so I'll just take that out in a snap. And then fuel rail is going to come with the injectors, hopefully. And don't fuel everywhere, which, you know, that's fine. There. So, injectors are out. Such pretty injectors. Thanks, Neil. And now, finally, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if you can see in there. 5 bolts up there, and then there are 4 bolts underneath. And you'll just have to take my word for it, because I can't see them either. I'm going to unfish the injector wires out from in between the manifold here. I'm going to have to take off this thing right below there. That's just a ground with some wires going into it. And then I think we're about ready to pull this thing off. Don't forget this thing right here. This is going to have to come off. Yep, 14. Oh, that's going to be tough. I'll have to get my big dog for that one. Ugh, what the fuck? And using a universal as a extension, never super great idea. All right, I gotta take that whole thing off here. All right, it's held on with 1 bolt. Looks like a 10. Right down here. That's it. Oh my god. That's not going to be any fun to put back on. Alright, and then all this comes off of the manifold. The wiring for the injectors are kind of connected to that, so that can come out. Here's something I didn't see earlier. It's that line right, whoops. See that line right there? So that goes into the manifold right there. Right here. And I need to remove that somehow. So that's gonna be a thing I need to do. This is harder than it looks because you can't see the 4 bottom bolts. But if you follow the, I guess, how is this gonna work? Fuck you. Alright, if you follow these like troughs under here, underneath each one of them, there's a bolt or a nut that you have to take out. And it's sort of like a deal where you're gonna just have to stick your long extension. See, you can see it there. You wanna go to the left of it, and you can feel around with your hand, or you can get lucky and hit it with your tool. I'm not getting lucky, so I'm gonna have to use both hands, but this is the hardest part, I think, is trying to find where those bolts are underneath. Once you get under there, you can totally feel them, and it's just getting the tool on them. There we go. And then somehow cracking them. They're not easy. They're pretty easy to remove once you crack them. Some of them are bolts, some of them are nuts. And I imagine it's going to be a nightmare trying to put these bolts back in place. Okay, so far it's gone nut, bolt, bolt. That's going to be a nut. So somehow I made that work. Putting it back on, that's going to be a special kind of fun. So there you go, nut, bolt, bolt, nut. Now I got to take the 5 off on the front, on the top, and that's going to be easier, right? Easier. Alright, so I'm not going to sugarcoat this. These bolts aren't super easy to get out. They're very difficult to reach. I used a universal joint with a small 12 on my 3/8 ratchet. I don't know if there would be a better way to do it. I've heard some people using a wrench like this with a ratchet on it, but I think I would have broken that because these were on there really good, probably well beyond their torque spec, but all the bolts are loose. This thing, yeah, is now loose. I'm about to take it off, but there's one hose left that I need to remove. Apparently there's fuel falling out of somewhere. You can't tell if that's coolant or fuel. Alright, coolant doesn't come out of the, this could be bad. It's coolant, it's not fuel. Alright, well, I guess there is coolant that hits up against the manifold. It doesn't seem to go anywhere. So it looks like coolant comes out of that little slot right there. Oh my god, you can't see anything. See that little slot right there? With all the green, nice and green coolant coming out of there. But otherwise you can see what a disaster that is in there. But you know, for 172,000 miles now, this does not look bad. I've seen a lot worse on YouTube. So there's some buildup. I'll definitely clean off the contact point there and every other contact point. Oh my god, am I bleeding? Yeah. Wow. Great. Motherfucker. This is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And I'm gonna have to get a lot of brake cleaner and bristle brush on that stuff. Here's the good news. This is holding up. So when I put that all back together, that's good. That's this isn't going anywhere. It's I guess the Loctite worked. So that's looking really good. There's a leaf down in there. That's always good. And everything else is going to get a little bit of a cleaning before I put this all back together. That's going to be it for tonight, I would think. Tomorrow I'll start with the cleaning and then putting it all back together with the new manifold gasket that I got. But I feel kind of accomplished that I was able to destroy an engine all by myself.
can only hope that I can put it back together. So I will catch you guys if this is the end of the video. Bye. That is not my cat.